Synopsys, how they do. Did they get the big AI behind them? China?
I mean, they did well compared to their guide. So they actually had a good quarter. They were actually down from a year ago on revenue, but they were at above the midpoint of their guidance. And of course, they beat both guide and estimates on the EPS side. Had a little interaction, a little exchange with CEO Sassine Ghazi. Very optimistic. You know, there's so much activity related to AI there, and they're getting a lot of tailwind on that. You know, the going forward guide looks pretty good. You know, this is an EDA company, but I guess for those out there that are not following like a Synopsys, like this is so important to companies like NVIDIA right now that are building. They are like a very critical, and of course they're an IP partner. They have a lot of they're the second largest. Everyone knows ARM. Nobody realizes that right behind ARM is Synopsys. So I think overall it's a solid start. The one thing I'll say is the Ansys deal, it feels very at risk to me right now. It's this is a China complexity thing. Like China has very little reason to be helpful right now with everything that's going on, and anything that makes our semi industry stronger doesn't really suit China to be cooperative. I just get the feeling, if nothing else, you know, they're going to kind of sit on this thing a while. It's starting to kind of remind me of the NXP Qualcomm stuff that was going on. I don't know if it gets done. They've had some good wins. They've been able to get through Europe and the UK and some other places. I just don't know what kind of concessions going to be made here. And this isn't really anything that Synopsys can do. It's all what Trump's doing and what sort of our overall posture is about China. And you heard Jassy, a few others have come out today talking about how we have risks of falling behind on AI if we don't kind of change and the curbs on the chip restrictions to China. There's so much macroeconomic, and me is now a commentator on broader political and macroeconomic issues. I also consider myself an expert on China. Joking. But in all seriousness, like there's a lot there. That's probably the biggest thing. Like I think if there's some hesitation, is there was a lot of expectation of this deal, and I would genuinely say, well, Synopsys has done all the right things. This one might end up being harder to get done than I originally thought.
Yeah, listen, the company did what it said it was going to do. It was way ahead of the China challenges back in 2024. Probably one of the most pragmatic companies, and it's reflected in their guide. The only thing I can't explain after doing some research, I need to check in with the Synopsys folks, is on design IP segment decline. I don't know if that's a China thing or not. Didn't understand the answer on the conference call. They reaffirmed, their guide, right, which has all of China baked in. But again, I think a meet is a miss here. The company did exactly what they said they were going to do. And, it's funny. I'll take the glasses half full on ANSYS, right? EU's a go. U.S. waiting period is over, meaning it's not going to be challenged, and the CMA is working on it in the UK. So those are the pluses on this. I hope this is not going to be another waiting game like NXP. I'd love for a company. I know this is easy. It's always easier for me to say something crazy like this when I don't have the P&L and I'm not the CEO and on the board. But just pull out of China. Cut them off, completely cut them off on this if they won't go through, or keep, on any combined products they might come up with, they don't get access to it. You don't want the end-to-end chip to physical design system to make your cars. Okay, go build your own, or keep using these disparate systems. I really want somebody to say that. I want somebody to pull out of a country.
I thought Hawk might do that with VMware, because I mean that actually could have worked, right? It was just not that big of a
right. I think like 10% of VMware usage was in there, but 1% of the paid licenses or something.
Yeah, I mean, if that one had gotten hung up, but that was also probably why it didn't, because it just wasn't. I don't know.
Well, well, Figma and Adobe. I would have loved for Adobe to say, okay, we're pulling out. You know, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, final comment on Synopsys. This just bugs me. Okay, this whole notion. I heard it on some of the questions in the conference call. Like, why can't you speed up generative AI? Let me be very clear here. The technology we use today to do searches, where yeah, it hallucinates a little on an EDA tool. If it hallucinates like 0.01% and 0.01% of the layout or the test is off, you're pretty much screwed. Okay, let me just put that out there, and I urge Synopsys to come up with a certain set of analogies or something to try to get that across. I know that could sound defensive, but literally, you're like, hey, why aren't you using generative AI to put the space shuttle on Mars yet? Right? Why isn't it? Well, because it's really exceptionally hard, and you can't make mistakes.
Yeah, it's the whole semi supply chain. I call it the cartel. It's got so many gates, routes, limits, and it's very hard to work around. And accuracy is so important. I mean, you can't have like a 98% working chip.
I know. It
You know,
hallucinates a little, right? Oh, when we burned it in 2 nanometer silicon, right? Your net die per wafer is like 2,